thrilled that hopefully the energy, the message, and the idea that we put out over the last couple of days was well received, and it appears as though it was. The idea that listen, Christmas is 2 weeks ago. New Year's Eve is almost a week ago, and no, actually, it was a week ago today. How about that? So here we are. We are deep in the throes, and that is spelled THROES, not THROWS. We're deep in the throes of getting ourselves into the new year. A new year, a new chapter, a new page, a new blank canvas. The creativity that goes into what we often refer to as simple act is profound, and that is one of the reasons that Doug and I now and for many months so far have been involved in and have committed to the 1 hour every Friday conversation that goes on here in the Bionic Sales Room. And what is Bionic Sales? For those of you that have not visited before, Bionic Sales is the intersection of technology and technique. Bionic Sales is it sprang from us making a joke that you're not a robot, you're bionic. There is a greater calling in professional selling that leads to leadership, that impacts our lives. And the greater calling is to do it well, to do it as well as we possibly can. And when we do it well, we represent the profession well. We improve the lives of the people whom we interact with. And it is not always about whether or not we get the deal, close the deal, convert the prospect to a customer. It's that we can continue with a sense of who we are and a piece about our actions, and that leads us to a conversation about confidence. So today, Douglas and I, and maybe some of you, will engage in a conversation about this thing called confidence. Confidence is one of the 9 applications that are core to the Bionic sales methodology, the Bionic sales mindset. And it is Doug and my hope, wish, and dream that this becomes a movement, that we are talking to people that refer to themselves as Bionic sellers throughout this 2022 year, this 22nd year of the 21st century. And as I say that out loud, I'm wondering, does 2000 count as part of the 21st century? Because if it does, then we're in the 23rd year of the 21st century, even though it says 2022. But that rabbit hole we will leave alone for right now. In my preparation for our conversation today, I thought about the thing that fascinates me, and that is language. Regardless of the tongue, regardless of whether it's Italian or Swahili or German or Inuit, no matter what the language or the specific tongue that we speak, language is the great grand symphony of life, and language is my deep, deep obsession. I march that out through my musical pursuits. I march that out through my writing. Doug and I have marched that out for 2.5, coming up longer than 2.5 years, in hammering out these applications and getting to the core of what we want to share with people so that they can be positive representations of the profession. And we don't want to make salespeople better. We want to make better salespeople. So when we have plays on words like that, they are very consciously tested. They are stress tested. They are compared to other thought processes and philosophies. And in all of that, what I was thinking before we went live this morning was the root where the word confidence comes from. And if we look at the word confidence and take off NCE at the end, we take off the suffix, we're looking at the word confide. We are confiding in ourselves. We are telling ourselves that we should tap into our own potential. We are telling ourselves that the outcome has got to be something that we can detach ourselves from. However, we have got to be able to point to an ongoing process, or as our Canadian and British friends say, process. We've got to attach to that so that we can get a sense of why we do what we do, of how we can improve, and how we can use these markers, these signposts on this phenomenal journey of understanding language, applying language, testing language. And we can confide in ourselves that the only way for us to tap into our potential is to take a risk here and there. There are several people in the room today that are big risk takers. And when I say big risk taker, I don't mean that they're going to Vegas with their mortgage money. I mean that they are approaching the blank canvas. They are looking at the blank page. They are looking at the empty calendar and deciding that they are going to leave a mark there, that they are going to make an impression there. And that is all part of the larger work. The larger work for me is a novel, a screenplay, a methodology like Bionic Sales, a symphony, or an album of songs. The larger work is what is this year going to look like for you? What is it going to feel like, sound like, and how do you confidently, how do you tell yourself, how do you confide in yourself the things that will propel you, the things that will inspire people around you, the things that will allow you to open the valve of confidence. So, Doug, as usual, you know that I only have, I don't know, somewhere between 17 and 143 things to say about this. What's going on in the mind of Douglas Hall this morning?
I was actually just taking personal bets on when you would call me on and what precarious situation I would have gotten myself into at the moment called me up on the screen. And with it being a balmy 7 degrees in St. Louis, I will not be walking outdoors as I typically do during these calls, but I just braved it for 5 minutes and I'm like, I got to walk inside. And you're like, Doug, what are you thinking? So I'm thinking I'm cold. Okay. But when it comes to confidence, I mean, it's the same line I always say. It's not about knowing you're going to win. It's knowing even if you lose, you're going to be fine and you'll figure it out. Confident people aren't cocky. They're not braggadocious. They're not full of themselves. They just are confident in the moment that they've got this covered. And if they don't, they'll be okay. And that's a big piece of it. I think people see confidence as something you can lose or gain just by the moment. We've dealt with a lot of salespeople that I lost my confidence, or I did all my prep and I knew everything I knew about the product and I was super confident. And then they asked another question and I wasn't prepared and I lost my confidence. That wasn't confidence to begin with. Confidence would have been walking right into the room and saying, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see what they have to say and see if we can figure it out. And I think a lot of salespeople struggle with that.
Yeah, I agree. I've heard a lot about imposter syndrome and not being a psychologist or a psychologist. I don't know what the validity of that is. As someone who made a living for over 14 years as a professional speaker, I had to steel up my confidence. I had to, I think it was Shakespeare who said, screw your courage to the sticking place. I love the sound of that because it sounds like a physical act. It sounds like it's something that we can do mechanically that will start to move us or affect us emotionally. And yeah, I went through some mechanics before I would speak. It's not like I don't ever speak anymore, but nowhere near the volume that I did for those 14 years. I had years when I did 45 presentations in a 52-week year. And that 52-week year, of course, had holidays. 5 minutes before it was showtime, and that's really how I viewed it. I mean, when we are in front of an audience, doesn't matter what it is that we're sharing with them. When we view it as a performance, we view it through a different lens. When we can prepare by calming ourselves, by clearing our mind, and focusing on the intention. It takes a certain amount of ego to be willing to get up in front of other human beings. Takes a lot more to ask for a significant fee to do so, and that sparked something in me as a early 30s person. And I later in life, about 8 years later, I turned it into a business. And the reason that I walked through all of that is that I wonder, and I'm open to hearing other people's opinions on this, specifically yours. Is confidence as simple as a decision? Do we just decide to be confident?
I think it's different, and I'm probably going to go in fight here. So if I lose you, sorry. But I think it's different for everybody's own personal situation. I think that confidence is something that's realized. It's not something that's earned. It's not something that is can be taught. It's just something that sometimes it's environmental. You just get to a point where you're like, screw it, what was I worried about? And sometimes it's something you kind of condition yourself to get through. But confidence really is believing in yourself.
So it's a faith issue?
Oh, you really want me to break it down? Confidence is internal. Trust is with others. faith is in the unknown. And I'm not being critical of any of those three things. I mean, faith isn't something that you have to manifest in yourself, a belief. It's something that's not tangible typically. Trust is something that, you know, I know they use the term "in God we trust," but the history behind that was because people weren't trusting the banking system, so they had to throw some faith up in that. But the reality is you build trust, you acquire faith, or you have faith, but confidence is something you possess.
Okay, so all right, so we lost Doug there. So Justin, you raised your hand. I've not had an opportunity to take a look at your profile. So our conversation here today is a sharing of ideas.
I was in such a moment when that happened. Sorry.
You were. So I was just about to invite Justin to share with us his ideas around confidence. Justin?
Yes, thank you for bringing me up on stage. I've made the joke for years. I'm a recovering schizophrenic. I'm in 5 years with symptoms free, but it's something. It's hard to lack confidence when you spend nearly 2 decades thinking you're literally God. That said, that joke leads to an understanding of believing in yourself and believing in your ability to overcome and surpass obstacles. With my story, which is in my bio, I was homeless. I was in jail. I attempted suicide. I overcame all that to achieve success. And the more success I achieve, the more my confidence in myself and my ability to overcome those hardships and achieve more and more success comes on. And I get more and more confident. In sales, specifically in sales, confidence in yourself, your product or company or service, and your ability to communicate the value is essential, because if you're lacking it, your prospect's going to pick up on it, and that's going to send up red flags, put their defenses up, and they're less likely to buy from you. And that's when you see events like commission breath, where somebody really, really, really needs a sale. They lose their confidence in their ability to close the sale. And even if they do everything right, the person that they're trying to sell to kind of backs off and chooses to go another route, because that lack of confidence is palpable. It's understandable from a subconscious level. So, I've been doing sales for nearly 20 years, been a professional prospector for 10, and in prospecting and cold calling and cold emailing, a lot of that communication has to come from a place of confidence, or you're not getting the appointment. So that's
Right,
my
so,
take on it.
okay, did not mean to interrupt you. I love the energy, and I love what you, number one, that you're being that open and transparent and sharing with us a challenging history. And so it makes me ask both of you and Doug, and potentially of someone else that raised their hand, that I want to get a sense of a little bit of their story as well. Does confidence show up in interactions with other people, or is confidence an internal thing that is detached from the experience with other people?
Well, I think that confidence is, personally, I'm going to speak to this, and I want to speak to a couple of things Justin said as well, John. I mean, confidence for me is internal. Confidence is something that, while it might affect others and it might be appreciated by, confidence is a solo thing. And, Justin, I commend you, first of all, on being so open and transparent about the things that you've suffered through. And ultimately, when you talk about confidence and building it, the one thing I hear is that, confidence is something that can get established, can be built up, can feel good. But it's also the one thing you can lean on when you hit that rock bottom. Because if you don't have that at that moment, you don't have what it takes to get back out of it. At some point, somebody has to be able to say, you know what, I can figure this out. And I think people that come from that, they're a lot easier, they have a lot better of a time handling an objection on a call, or dealing with a bad day, or not hitting their numbers, because they know they've been behind before and they can get back ahead. It's those that haven't suffered at that level, or had that amount of adversity to overcome. They tumble the minute they can't pay an electric bill. So when you get to that whole sense of commission breath, which I love the term, but it really comes out of desperation, and desperation comes out of a lack of confidence. And so that starts before you even pick up the phone, because you get to your desk and you're like, if I don't close a deal today, my lights are getting turned off. Instead of, I'll figure out the lights, I got to focus on closing a deal today. Same statement, just very different focus or perspective.
It's all about framing the idea. And we talk about this a lot in Bionic Sales in the cohorts that we conduct. We're 16 minutes in, and about every 15 to 20 minutes over the course of the hour, I will do what is accepted practice here on Clubhouse, and that's to reset the room. We don't want anyone coming in wondering what we're talking about. Of course, we've had a whole bunch of people come in and out, and we always have more people come in, which is exciting. This is the Bionic Sales Room. Here every Friday from 9:15 Eastern to 10:15 Eastern. We open the discussion to multiple topics. We start either with a particular application or a comparison of two applications. And those applications are core thought processes and frames of discussion in the Bionic selling methodology and mindset. Douglas and I have been working on this for over 250 hours now, not just here in Clubhouse, but in and out of Clubhouse. And our objective is to create a conversation. And we thought, you know what, Friday mornings might be a great place, time, arena to create these conversations, because conversations stay with us. One of the great things about Clubhouse is that we hear things that stay with us for a couple of hours or a couple of days. And in our conversation this morning, when we're talking about confidence, we are talking about that really ethereal arena where we know that we're going to take a risk and we do the action anyway. The confidence, I was saying earlier, for those of you that just joined, there was kind of breaking down the wordsmithing of confidence. And if you've heard us before, you know that that's kind of my thing. I'm a little bit of a word geek. And confidence begins with the word confide. And I think that a friend of mine said that he has a committee in his head. and one person on the committee is the finance person. Another person on the committee is the dreamer. Another person on the committee is the inner critic. And he's got a couple of others. And he says, whichever one I bring into the car with me when I drive to the office, or whichever one I bring into the next meeting with me, is the one that has the loudest voice, has the one that I listen to the most. And the one that he listens to most often is the one that says, this is going to be great. Whether it ends up as a deal, whether it ends up as a new relationship or not, it's going to be a learning experience. And it's going to be a great way to spend 45 to 57 minutes. This is going to be great. I remember clearly Russ Landers saying that to me. He said, when I get in the car, before I turn the key, I want to give center stage to the committee member in my head who looks at everything and says, this is going to be great. So we're talking about confidence. We're interested in hearing ideas, perspectives, debate points, and or guacamole recipes from an IP.
You inspired me. I'm sorry, I cut the guacamole recipe off, but I'll just make you some. You reminded me of something I should say, and this is something we used to do at a previous company, and it was a play on confidence, and it was just, we used to say love it and own it. And the line I would use is, loving it means, because I'll say, you gotta love what you do. Even like my parents would say, they love me. They don't necessarily like me at the present moment. And that's the same thing with your job. But we say loving it is saying, if you run into a bear in the woods, you get to say, I get to fight a bear in the woods today. Owning it is looking back at your team and saying, if this bear gets me on my back, somebody better jump in because I'm a bitch on my back. And the concept behind it is, when you're confident, you're not just confident in the fact that you get to do something new. You're also aware and owning your weaknesses, your flaws. You confide in yourself. You say, I can do this, but I'm a human being. I could fail. And if I do, I will learn. And that's the key to confidence, is commitment to improvement rather than just going for the wins.
Justin, what does that make you think of?
It actually makes me think of the Japanese principle of Kaizen, consistent improvement, consistent daily improvement, because it really is like my confidence, which is high. I have a very high level of confidence in my ability to do my job as a prospect and consultant, my ability to sell my services, to sell my clients' services. It comes from having failed over and over again, but failing forward over and over again, having fallen short, learning a lesson, getting back up and trying again until I mastered the skills that I needed to master. And I mean, you guys are right that confidence is internal. It is something that is very much within. And a lot of the people that I know that are the most confident are the ones who had nobody supporting them in their upbringing or their childhood or their teen years, because they literally had to develop a belief in themselves because nobody else believed in them. And that failing forward constantly, that constantly improving yourself, that constantly being aware of your own failings and your own weaknesses, and then supplementing or working on them is key to building that confidence and getting that confidence, which once you have that confidence, the world opens up to you. Everything from business to relationships are improved by having confidence.
One of the folks in our recent cohort took us through a really interesting thought process. And he said, we always hear about people saying in the professional world and specifically in the sporting world, when athletes get cut, we hear the phrase, it's not personal, it's business. He says, I completely flip the script on that. My view is, and I will say this to people, hey, it's not business, it's personal. You and I are going to work together for a long time. Let's make sure that we get along. I thought that really kind of it moved a marker in my mind. It reset a view of 37 years of viewing myself or aspiring to be. I guess I'm jumping back and forth over the fence between those two. What is it that you aspire to be, and how do you view yourself as a pro? I mean, as a young man, as a musician, I wanted to be a pro. As a writer, I wanted to be a pro. I mean, we have a couple of writers in the room here, and I'm sure many of them are familiar with Stephen Pressfield's great work, the War of Art. And people say, "Don't you mean the art of war?" No, I mean the War of Art. And in there, he talks about it. People wait for someone to tell them that they have become a pro. He says, no, you need to go pro today. You need to dispense with the BS. You need to stop making excuses. You need to stop allowing resistance to rule your life. And Justin, as someone who's a professional prospector, man, you must face mental and emotional resistance on a daily basis.
I do. I mean, I make 150.
Way.
Yeah, I make 150 to 200 cold calls a day to talk to 10 to 15 people and get 3 to 4 yeses. But that makes me a rock star getting those 3 to 4 yeses every day. Whereas I only talk to 10 or 15 out of 200 dials.
Yeah, man. So we're talking about confidence here today, and appreciate Justin's input. Anyone else that has an idea, a question, a debate point, we would like to know a little bit about you, of course. Those of you that can kind of tell us in your profile what you do, where you're dialing in from, where you're jumping into the Clubhouse experience from. The confidence is an interesting thing because we've talked about it here for nearly 30 minutes, and I'm not sure that we've nailed it down because we know what it feels like, but it's difficult to define. And if it's difficult to define, how do we move ourselves into the realm where we feel it consistently? Is it strictly the hell with it, I'm just going to do it? Is it I'm going to remind myself of the things that I've done before, and hopefully that'll prop me up? Doug, where does confidence come from for you?
How do I channel it? How do I reconnect confidence when I might not feel it? I have techniques there. I mean, John, I want to answer your question. I think confidence is intangible. Trust is intangible. Faith is intangible. So it's hard to measure. It's hard to validate, but that's why the feeling is so important. But it's certainly easy to read, and it's because it's something that for each and every one of us is a little different. But for me, my personal technique for what I would call personal check-in is if I'm not feeling like I'm doing the job I'm supposed to be doing, or falling behind, I just ask, and I've probably said this on several of our Clubhouse sessions before, would a year ago me be happy with what I've done? Would 5 years ago me be impressed with what I've done? And would 10 years ago the version of me be blown away by what I have done at this point? And if the answer is yes to all three, I just go back to work, because sometimes you don't know how fast the car's going when you're in it, and you could feel down or you could feel like you're a little bit behind. But when you start using those little mental checkpoints, you realize how much you've actually gotten done.
Well, okay. Well, I think that's a great segue to bringing Jody up. Jody's on stage. Jody is a fellow musician. Jody is a fellow professional seller. Jody, what's going on in your mind this morning?
Hey, good morning, guys. So I want to say hi to the room, and I don't know if I'm the only one in this clubhouse right now that actually took the Bionic sales course. So I just wanted to chime in because something this week happened that reminded me about the confidence piece that we spoke about in the cohort, and it was watching Station 11. I don't know if anybody else in Clubhouse is watching that show on HBO Max right now, but it's amazing. But in Station 11, there's a scene where one of the actors, they're a traveling troupe in a post apocalyptic society, and one of the actors in the show is overwhelmed with a lack of confidence. His stage fright is paralyzing, and he doesn't want to go on stage. And so other, the main actress, Mackenzie Davis, sits down with him and looks him in the eye and says, I'm going to tell you something that I learned a long time ago. It's not about you. When you get up on that stage and when you are speaking to that person and it's in your scene, you're not going up on stage to be this character and be a queen and be a mother and try to be all of these things. You get up on stage and you make it about the other person. You go on stage and you are speaking to your son. You're bringing that love onto the stage, and it is about them. It's not about you. And so I think, to me, that was how she got him out of the stage fright, so he would go on stage, because he put the focus on the person that you're on the call with. Put put the client as the hero. Make it's about them. It's not about you. And I think that was a big lesson in confidence, because the more you make it about yourself and you're trying to be something, you're trying to be something and be something and be something you're not, if you put the focus on the other person on that call, on the person in that Zoom, the other person in the room, that is where you're going to find your confidence, because it's about them.
You're bionic.
Journey starts here.
You've come this far. Hopefully, we can bring some more insight into your life, because if you are in sales, keep in mind that you're not a robot, you're bionic.
Journey starts here. Another quotes that'll inspire you to subscribe and like.
Well, and that speaks, and thank you for that, Jody. And we were thrilled to have you in one of the bionic cohorts. There's freedom comes from a level of risk, meaning embracing risk, taking risk. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is having fear and doing it anyway. And this is something that any professional seller can relate to. Are we always confident all the time in all the things that we do? No, of course not. I don't think any human is. We sales pros, we like to separate ourselves, say, well, we're so unique. Well, yeah, we are, because at the core of it, we're kind of psychotic, because we're hoping that we can get the approval of other humans that we do not know, and we're hoping that we can get that on a regular basis. We're needy humans. But when we can make that transition, and that is a powerful transition to make, when we can make the transition to focus on the other person, it is not about us, it's about them and where they're headed. That is taking the boat in a completely new direction. That is taking the boat into open and calm and inviting waters. And guess what? People love to go on those journeys. People love, the idea that we're interrupting someone's day, or that we're distracting. Well, you know what? It just might be the exact thing that they were subconsciously, unconsciously hoping for. When we create experiences and we engage people in a way to spend their time that they had not thought of, planned on, or imagined, we've made an impression on them. And again, back to what I was saying earlier, this clubhouse room is making an impression on someone here, certainly is making it on me. The discussions that we had over the 9-week cohort, Jody, that you participated in, clearly that made an impression on you. I just quoted someone earlier. Our currency is language, and we do not have to load up the bank ourselves. People want to make those deposits. People want, Doug and I were working on one particular portion of the Bionic sales methodology, and I said, well, here's the thing. People like to tell a story. And Doug interrupted me and corrected me, rightfully so. And he said, no, people need to tell their story. Everyone in this room has that need, whether it's sitting at a bar, whether it's at a convention, whether it's commuting, whether it's in a pitch opportunity. We need to tell our story. And Doug and I believe that the Bionic mindset, approach, and methodology is a way for more salespeople to hear more stories and to participate in the creation of new and exciting stories. So we're here. I guess it's time to reset the room again.
Well, I was going to add something too before we lost the piece of the content. I know.
Oxygen, brother.
Well, I was waiting for you to breathe, but I was just going to say that we, as salespeople, we're always trying to get everybody's approval. All we really need is their attention. It's not their approval that we should be looking for. It's not about them approving anything. It's about them, and that's why we listen to understand them. And if we understand them, they'll pay more attention to us. And if we gain their interest and find a solution for them, they'll trust us. But we're too busy worrying about whether or not they like us. We're not there to be liked. We're there to help somebody solve a problem. And hopefully our product or service and solution does that. If not, we should move on.
We've talked about this before. I love the idea of solving problems. The overwhelming amount of relationships that I have brought in and maintained were more focused on capturing opportunities. Now, am I slicing and dicing the language? Always, every day, minute to minute. Think about it is like looking to the west for a good portion of your day and then completely turning 180 degrees and focusing your attention on the east. Problem solving is wonderful. And you've said many times, we don't sell, we solve. I love that language. Part of it is because of the alliteration. Part of it is because it selling sounds like something that's being done.
Well, if I said we don't sell, we I don't think you would have liked it just because of the alliteration. So
that's exactly right. So thank you for that distinction. With selling sounds like something we do to someone. Solving sounds like something we do with someone. So that is a key distinction that we need to add to our library of content. Number one, and number two, when we can get away from problems and focus on opportunities, then we've got a very different conversation. I've said for many years, my least favorite sentence in the English language is no problem. It begins with no and it ends with problem. I don't want to focus people's minds on problems. I don't want to focus on negatives. And being a fanatic for open-ended questions, yes, we are going to get refusals or declinations. People will decline our offer. I get it. I don't want to push for a no. I want to learn more. I want to find out where we can go. And if we can't go anywhere today, then back to confidence. I'm going to survive that. Not only am I going to survive that, I'm going to add that to my kit, my toolkit, my library. I mean, Justin, in the sheer volume of work that you create on a daily basis, the more that you can look for opportunities as opposed to push for the no, that's got to change the energy around what you do, right? Okay, so he's flashing the microphone. That means he's probably making cold calls as we're talking. So we are, that's cool, man. So we're 40.
You have an uncanny ability to call people out right when they put that phone down.
Yeah, and I also can get you to talk when your Wi-Fi is wavering.
My bad.
Or it may be mine. It may be mine, and that's okay. So we're here talking about confidence. We've gone on a little bit of an interesting journey here. I'm kind of out of questions, Doug.
Justin's still giving the flash. You're back. Justin's back. Yay!
Yeah,
I had to take a call. I want to throw in on something Jody said, because when she was talking about putting it on the other person, putting the attention and the focus on the other person, that is literally the best way to overcome imposter syndrome that I've ever found. Because at one point in my career, when I had raised my rates, I was starting to worry that everybody was going to find out I was a fraud and scamming them. And then I had a client who had a problem. He was unable to sell a free service, and my brain just instantly, I focused on him and his problem and his solution. And when I came up with the solution that you're selling free instead of offering value, we need to flip the script on this. That's when my imposter syndrome just dropped away. And I knew I was the expert I had been positioning myself as. And it came from positioning it on the other person and what their need was, not on anything that I was doing.
Okay, so Doug and I have known each other for several years. I did not know Doug during his talent management, talent agent, talent booking portion of his life. Doug and I met when he was driving a startup called Genie Cast. Doug is now doing engaging virtual and other stuff, and he's my collaborator on Bionic Sales. And Doug, I've known you for a while, man. I cannot imagine you suffering from imposter syndrome.
Oh, I was bad.
Come on.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was for me, the struggle was that, and it's interesting, you know, here me and Justin are talking about imposter syndrome, two white guys, where it's supposed to be something that commonly affects women and minorities because of the systems we put in play where you just don't feel like you're supposed to be at the table. Well, I came up in a different way than a lot of the people sitting in the boardroom with me. When I finally achieved a certain level of success, it was the feeling of I didn't deserve it. I'm an imposter. Somebody's going to find out that when they were going into Wharton, I was putting flyers in car windows for event. Or, you know, somebody's going to find out that I'm the only guy that doesn't have $1 billion portfolio at the table. So it crippled me in situations where I wasn't sure if I was going to say the right thing, if EBITDA is what I thought it meant, or in those types of scenarios. And it certainly set me back for a couple of years. And it was early on in that shift between those two jobs. So you might have known me right around, or met me right around the period of time where I was getting over it. And on that note, he left. Something I said, oh, he's back. Was it what I said, John? John, are you with us? If you can hear me, move something in the room. All right, Justin, you unmuted. You can roll with this one.
I just want to say Clubhouse likes to boot people from their own rooms. It's done it to me dozens of times.
It is a fickle app for sure, but it's giving us the freedom to chat. John, are you feeling well? Is there a life alert that we can send out for you? He can't hear anybody. Oh, here, I'm going to message John. Unplug your router now. Restart. All right. So anyway, Justin, for me, getting over it though, and I'll say this as I'm playing my best John, for me, getting over it was just a matter of realizing that, as I say this, I sound horrible. It sounds, everybody's a little full of shit. And what I mean by that is, you know, the academic doesn't have the entrepreneurial skill set. The entrepreneur might not have the educational or intellectual skill set of that academic. But for me, sitting at the table, whether I had either one, what I did have was results. And I knew that I can drive them. And as long as I could drive results, it didn't matter where I went to school. It didn't matter whose country club I was a member of. All that mattered was I could deliver. And that was from believing in myself and knowing if I didn't deliver, then I'd figure something out and admit my flaw and learn. And that's, for me, the big piece of confidence is 0 FGs. Just really putting it out there and saying, I'm going to give it a go and I'm going to do my best. And if your best doesn't do, you accept it and you try to do better next time.
And if you made it this far, you probably should like and subscribe.
Definitely subscribe.
And, you know, if you'd like to comment, that'd be even better. Throw us
We love talking to people. And we interrupt each other a lot. A lot. Like and subscribe.
Thank you.
I don't know, Justin, how do you feel about that? Are you in the same spot? I two guys talking about our imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it was very much the same for me. I was working with a lot of high level funded startups, and I felt like the low man on the totem pole, and felt like I was conning people for, you know, charging them $50 an hour to dial. My rate's much higher now, but I don't feel like I'm conning them because I've established to myself my expertise, and I always find that expertise by focusing on the other person, focusing on the client, the prospect, and seeing what solution they need, what their need is. And if I can solve that, then I am the expert I think I am. And once you get to that point where you know you're the expert that you've been positioning yourself as, that imposter syndrome seems to fly away. But it comes back from time to time, honestly. Like, there are days where I'm like, I can't believe I just charged $600 for a consulting gig to automate a prospecting system. And then I get that prospecting system and the client emails me and says, hey man, I got like 15 appointments this month. And I'm like, rock on, kudos, we did great. And then the imposter syndrome fades away again. So I think
that's interesting. My issue wasn't tied to financial things though. It was in the sense of like maybe what people had achieved, but I never had a problem making money. I always had a problem, you know, wondering if I was a fraud or I couldn't deliver on the things I said I would deliver. I guess now that I'm thinking about it out loud, maybe my issue with money was I was maybe charging too little at points because of that. But I never, for me, and it's just interesting you said that, I never have a question when somebody pays me, oh, should I be getting this much money for this? My issue is always, if I'm sitting in the room and I say, we can get this done, do I really have what it takes to deliver it? But it's all one hand or another. Now John is telling me he can hear what's going on, but he can't hear anything in this room. John, I don't know what to tell you. We're here. But anyway, Justin, what were you going to say before I cut you off about that?
Oh, that was it. Just that, it's not a one and done. Sometimes your confidence gets shaken. Sometimes your belief in yourself can falter, but you got to get it back, because confidence is really, like we discussed earlier, it's the crutch you can lean on when things are hard and it doesn't look like you have a way out. You have to have confidence, confide in yourself, trust in yourself that you can find the way out. That's all I had to say.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Jody, I'm going to call you out here because you're still up on the panel, and confidence is, I know, something you struggle with. I'm curious, when you talk about engaging in someone else, you said you saw that. Have you had a chance to actually do or put the practice into play?
I think it's something that, it was something that reminded me of Bionic sales, because, we had spoken so much about that during the cohort. But so it is something that I thought I would be more of a natural at. I'm kind of a naturally empathetic person. So my struggle, and I've caught myself twice within the past month, and it's something I'm trying to improve on, is that I'm in a Zoom call with a potential client, and I'm having a great conversation with them, and then at some point I'm checking out, whether I'm like writing a note down, or maybe I'm adjusting something in the Zoom, or I was, or something just bloop, like a Slack or something came up, and something took my attention away. And in that moment where I stepped away, there was something very important the client said. And you only have that short period of time where you have a really good conversation going with somebody. And how did I let that distraction take me away? And so that's something I'm working on, is like, I don't want to miss key components to the conversation with a potential client or somebody that would be a great working relationship, just because something took my attention away, right? Like, dang it.
So I will, and I know, trust me, if there's anybody on this panel right now with me with my ADHD, there is nothing worse than catching yourself into a minute of holy crap, I'm not listening, something they said triggered this, or I just saw a pop up and I thought of this. Little hack though, and anybody who hasn't read The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, I would highly recommend reading it, but there is a hack for that, because you're sometimes conscious of it, you're just doing it. If you just say hello to yourself in your head, you will wipe everything you're thinking of. It's painful sometimes for me, but just using your inner voice, saying hello, it'll put you right back in the conversation. But anyway, go ahead, John.
And if you made it this far, you probably should like and subscribe.
Definitely subscribe.
And if you'd like to comment, that'd be even better. Throw us your
We
thoughts.
love talking to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Even over each
And
other.
we interrupt each other a lot.
A lot.
A lot. Like and subscribe.
Thank you.
And welcome to.
I just, number one, I'm glad to be back. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I couldn't hear anything, and I thought I was either having a stroke or going down.
I think I figured out what it was, but we don't need to bore anybody.
I understand. You know what? I've used I'm sorry, I just had a brain cramp. I completely lost my focus here. Transparency and humanity are wildly powerful selling tools, because again, selling is as though we are doing something to someone. Solve it is doing something with, or we can say, you know what? I'm not sure I really understand what you're getting at. And what that does is it says hello to them it makes them say hello, because most of the interactions that we have are with humans. And if we're interacting with humans, a lot of them are suffering from the same thing. Remember the decision committee, the person, the target, the prospect, they're not sitting there evaluating our selling approach. They're not. I mean, Doug and I are, but most are. And if they're not, they're curious as to where the conversation is going to. And I have no problem, moving the needle on the vinyl record. No problem, having the Wi-Fi go out in the middle of a conversation, saying, I'm sorry, I'm not really sure. And here's the thing: people don't want to tell their story. They need to tell their story. And the more people we can get to share their story, the more they will feel connected to us. One of my painful selling truths out of one of my books is, the more I listen to what you say, the more fascinating I find. And this is one of the great gifts of Clubhouse, this environment where we can jump in and jump out, and we can listen, and we can gather ideas, concepts, wisdom, humor, a different perspective, a global perspective. We had one of the just really cool voices on Clubhouse. A guy named Chris Dawson was in the room, and his from sitting in Liverpool, he has been able to attract people from all over the globe to a conversation because he wants to know what are you and what are you working on today. And I got to tell you, that was the impetus for LinkedIn way back. It was supposed to be a collaborative. Well, I mean, the initial idea was that it would be a collaborative tool. When I say supposed, LinkedIn is a platform, and a platform becomes what the users, all of these platforms that have been introduced into our lives. We can criticize the platform. We can say what should and should not go on those platforms. However, the users make the platform, and I think that's a piece of perspective and about our selling conversations that go back to our selling confidence. Since we've only got 11 and a half minutes, confidence is an internal that impacts and affects how we act externally and what kind of a reach and impact we have. And that's a daily risk, a daily choice, and a daily. Again, I'm really glad that we have replays on here, Doug, because I'm going to want to transcribe some of it. The more we talk about these ideas, the deeper we can all go into these thought processes. And when we lose our way, which we will, because the single most difficult thing to do is to give someone else our undivided attention. So I don't think any of us should feel guilty, feel inadequate, because we're having a hard time paying attention to someone that may be going on and on, that may have lost, going back to the original thing that Jody brought when she came up on stage. It's not about, and there's such freedom. It's not about me. It's about where we can go together. And if we can't go anywhere together, we're going to hang up the phone. We're going to end the Zoom. We're going to walk away, shake hands, and get in our cars, whatever it might be. I'm still going to be the same,
Well, and John, I want to add to this too. I mean, these are opportunities we have to engage with someone at a level we may never have. That thought, Jody, you mentioned where your brain goes in another direction. Sometimes it's literally because of the call. It's saying, "Oh, I wonder if this person isn't interested. Maybe they're not interested because of this. Maybe they're not interested because of this." And they're talking, and you're thinking whether or not they're interested. In those cases, you just ask them, "I'm sorry, I'm getting a feeling like you're not interested." It keeps it in the conversation. And I think that's back to confidence, is the ability to put what's going through your head, to be vulnerable, to say, "I'm getting this feeling like I'm not doing a good enough job explaining this to you right now. Is there something I'm not getting right?" Instead of thinking it while you're trying to explain. And I think that's a big piece of it, is confidence, is just putting it out.
Vulnerability is way more attractive than we are comfortable giving it credit. I'm going to say that again. Vulnerability is way more attractive than we are comfortable giving it credit. I'm going to take a risk analogy right here. We were out last night. We were at a brewery, and mostly because that's a fun word to say, brewery. And someone came in and had a Labrador Retriever. Everyone in the room immediately fell in love. There's something about an animal and its vulnerability where we want to connect with it. We want to make it feel welcome. We want to share in its energy. And it just was, everyone in the room, there were 30 people in that place, in that tasting room. And everybody wanted, the dog's name was Jameson, which of course was probably more appropriate at a bar than at a brewery. But vulnerability shows our humanity. And that when we can be confident in the fact that we are not the only ones that are vulnerable, then we can lower our shields. Then we can drop the facade. Then we can make a mistake. When I led sales teams in my brief 8-year career as a leader with a couple of different my mantra was, if you are not making at least one mistake and asking me 3 questions I will see that you have shown up at work, but I will assume that you've chosen not to participate. We got to ask. We got to be willing to make. I don't remember who said it. I forgive me for not crediting it, but it's that willing to step up. It's that when we started almost an hour ago, we were talking about the blank canvas, the blank page, the open spot on the electronic. Putting anything on that is a bold act, and it is a toward solidifying. My name's John, and that's my.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
I'm sorry,
I want to add wrong.
My name is John Klymshyn. Thank you for coming to my TED.
And yeah, or you can go, and that was my time. I would like to add though, because it's interesting, and you made me think of something here that a lot of times when somebody asks you how you're doing, the trigger response is good. It doesn't matter what. And a lot of times we justify that as, well, either I don't want to inconvenience them with my problems, or they don't really ask because they. And it's almost like we're saying we're not trying to bother that person, but the reality is what we're doing is we're choosing to, in order to save ourselves the discomfort or the energy of actually saying, well, I've had better days, but it's not about me. Whatever it might. When we lower our shield, when we say, I'm at work today, doesn't mean I had a great day, and I can tell that person on the other line because they're going to get to know me. I'm going to want to be honest with them. That person goes, oh, well, you know what? I'm not having a great. But it's this attitude as salespeople that we're supposed to be robots. We're not supposed to be human beings. And that's not who people want.
I'm going to take a quote from someone here in the room whose profile and there is something in that person's profile that I absolutely love. It says, everything in life can be taken from you except your mindset. Now, you who wrote that, you know who you are. We invite you to join us next week and come up on stage and talk about that, especially since you are also a drummer. There's,
You got everybody looking for an Easter egg right now.
I really do. It's a beautiful. Here's the thing. We create these rooms so that we can connect. We create these rooms so that we can work out some of this material. This is kind of like Douglas and I taking our set on the road. And we're looking to play as the biggest stages we possibly can. And we want
It's kind of a jazz set though, but
yeah, it very much. You know what it is? It's like
just triggered him.
the Dave Matthews Band taking the new Paul McCartney material and working on it for 2.5 hours.
Well, that's how long the recording.
I know that's true. So we got to limit it because we're 3.5 minutes away from closing out. So
an entire field of ants marched home while he was still playing that song. Keep going, please.
They most certainly did, and they were humming Jimmy thing.
Songs is
Oh God. Okay. That is the first sign, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. That's the first sign that we are running out of material here.
We're just getting to
it. Doug is confident in the fact that, here's the thing. We don't take ourselves seriously at all. We take what we do reasonably seriously. But we're not here to fix any problems. We're here to open windows in people. We are here to engage in lively conversations and to walk away with some energy, some juice for the day. And we will be back in a week to talk about another aspect of what bionic selling is, and I'm sure that conversation will be a journey in itself. So, Jody, closing thoughts?
I just want to thank you guys for having me on. It was nice talking to you. Happy New Year to you.
I appreciate that, Jody. Justin, if you're closing thoughts?
Just as far as confidence goes, if you lack confidence, look at yourself and realize that you are an unlimited being of unlimited potential, and have some faith in yourself because you.
I like that a lot. Doug, close.
Yeah, just pick yourself back up, brush your shoulders off, and get back to work. I mean, it's all about what we deliver. It's all about, and really what it comes down to is really enjoying what you do and believing in what you sell. If you do those two, who cares what other people think? Just go out and